When the road is just this thing in front of you, and it's just holes and ruts and things like that, you use all the road. If first you don't succeed driving straight to Alaska, you obviously have to try again. So I've made 2 drives to Alaska for 2 completely different reasons. One completely ill-advised and one advised. SWAE is going to have an expedition from their headquarters in Montana to drive to the Arctic Circle, all the way to Prudhoe Bay, like this, going past the Arctic Circle, all the way up. And they invited me to be one of the hired gun cannonball drivers. So Ed would be driving one of the SWAE mobiles and I'd be driving the other. We had number 23 and number 24. And the rest of our crew, we had the guys from SWAE and we had a couple of influencers with us. And they're like, the idea is to drive all the way to the top, up to Dead Horse, Alaska in 4 days and then come back in 4 days. Are you in? Of course I'm in. I mean, if the phone rings, right, and it's the President of the United States or the Pope or Ed Bolian, you answer the phone, right? So of course I'm going to go do this. And after my first trip in a 50-year-old Jaguar, I was looking forward to the luxury of a 2015 Porsche Cayenne Turbo that had been all tricked out. Now, these were the diametrically opposed vehicles for this trip. Where the Jaguar was waiting for it to explode and die, these Porsches were sublime. They were magnificent. I mean, I'm obviously a Porsche fan, but these things were unbelievable. We left Montana on SWAE Day, and they had this big party, and we had all these cool stuff, and they had all the different vehicles lined up. And then we headed off to Alaska. We drove through Montana, which I've never been to Montana before, and I gotta say, this part of the country is phenomenal. And I can see why Californians are taking over Montana, because it's beautiful. We drove up through Montana, up into Canada, then across over to British Columbia. And for my last video, you know what a fan I am of British Columbia. Everything through there is just stunning. But this time, instead of sitting and worrying about cars exploding and watching temperature gauges and things like this, I got to look out the windows, really, a lot. In fact, driving a Porsche Cayenne Turbo was overly easy. Like, there's probably a middle ground that would be the perfect car to drive. But this was, like, this car, we could have gone all the way to the North Pole in this thing. It was amazing. But look out the window, and we saw bison and foxes and bears and moose and whatever critter is, like, on your critter bingo for Canada. We hit all of them, and I mean in numbers. Hundreds of critters. And that became the thing on the radios, was calling out the critters as we went. And we were driving like 12-hour days because, again, the distances we're covering are extreme. It's like driving across the country except going north. Canada is enormous, and all the way to Alaska. Now, I had only gotten up to Glacier View, Alaska, which is the southern part of Alaska, for our cliff jump. And that was a heck of a drive. In the Cayennes, we drove up. Part of me is like waiting for the beaver dam to break and wash out the road and have to do a detour. We actually got to that area and stopped and took pictures, and I got to see the damage that had been fixed over the past year, and it was pretty impressive. I mean, it was like 150 feet of road that had to be replaced, and all because of a little beaver dam. But it was almost anticlimactic driving over it. I'm like, oh, well, this is easy. We don't have to make a 1,500-mile detour. Okay, we drove over it. Then we got to the famous frost heaves in the Yukon that I talked about, and we could hit those things at 100 miles an hour in the Cayennes, which was tempting, but we kept it under control. Over the frost heaves, into Alaska, and most of the drive, really, it was just about keeping on schedule. And Ed and I are the cannonballers, so when it came down to driving a 6-hour stint, we would just hop in and push our way through. And it was great. It was a wonderful drive. Then we got to the part I'd never seen before. And that is the haul road that goes straight up through Alaska. So once you pass like Denali, you get the tourist part at the bottom of Alaska. Then there's a road that was created primarily just for the oil fields up there. And part of the time of year, it's covered in ice. And you've seen ice road truckers and things like that. And apparently, according to the truckers, the road is faster and easier to drive when it's iced over, because the tires stick to the ice and it's nice and smooth, and they grade it, the whole thing. It's like a graded highway, apparently. We didn't get that experience. We were there before the ice. Underneath the ice is a rutted, muddy gravel road for hundreds of miles. We get started on that, and as soon as we got on it, and it's called the Dalton Highway is the official name for it. Once you get on it, you realize you have exited civilization. And all of civilization's rules disappear at that time. Everything you programmed, and you've been driving for years in your life, you're programmed automatically, stay on the right of the road and give way and blah, 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 blah. But when the road is just this thing in front of you, and it's just holes and ruts and things like that, you use all the road. And you just get used to driving on the left, on the right, and on the shoulder, and around things. And there's occasionally the big truckers. And we were very, very nice to the truckers. In fact, Ed was the most polite person they probably ever met on the radio. Because these big rigs are moving, and they're moving fast, by the way, on these roads. And, Ed's all like, hello, truckers. We got a couple of orange trucks coming up behind you. We'd like to pass you on the left if you don't mind. And they're like, absolutely. And apparently they're used to, after talking to them, they're used to tourists just blazing by them, cutting them off, not having CBs. We had CBs. We were talking on the CBs. And apparently these truckers have another radio system we didn't know about, like an FM level thing, that they can talk almost the full length of the road. That once we got on there, they said that there's a couple of race cars coming up the Dalton Highway. And they said that we were cool. And these trucks could mess with you if they wanted to. They could take the whole road and block you for hours if they wanted to. But they were just like, they waved us on by, and it's like, hey, thank you very much. Now you have a good day. And off we went. I think Christopher Michaels said it was like being off the chain or something like that. Like that, you'd just been released. And I'd never driven like that before in my life for that kind of time. And it took hours. I think the record, they said, was like 9 hours to cross it. I think it took us like 12 or 14 or something like that. We stopped at Coalfoot, Alaska, which is the last truck stop, the northernmost truck stop in the country. We went in there. This is hilarious. We went in there for some food and to get ourselves some T-shirts. And of course, we're in the middle of nowhere, literally in the middle of nowhere. And this guy's all, hey, look, is that Ed Bolian from VINwiki? And I'm like, are you serious? Really? Wow. VINwiki has gotten much more famous than when I started this. So yeah, recognized all the way up. We did have a small issue, which was pretty amazing. We had these enormous spares on the back that had that slid into the hitches. And the hitch pin in it, apparently on one of the trucks, fell out and started sliding out. We didn't really know that until we pulled over to rest, and we're like, oh, something's going on back here. So we're nowhere. We're nowhere. And the hitch pin's out. Where are you going to get a hitch pin? Not kidding. And we also pulled off the road around this little roundabout, kind of look at the area. So we're not even on the road. This truck pulls in with a couple of hunters, and they're like, how's it going? Just happened. We were waiting hours. This was minutes. They pull in, they're like, how you doing? Oh, pretty good. We were going to use the handle from a socket driver in there we were figuring out a way to make a pin essentially at the point. They pull in, they're like, hey, you guys happen to have an extra hitch pin? They're like, yeah. Sure. In the middle of nowhere. Just absolutely. And I think we traded them a knife or something for it. And they put it in there, and we're back on the road. I mean, what are the odds of that happening? We get up to the top, and the final 60 miles, as you approach the final, there's this big climb in the mountains as you go through. And I got to see Ed Bolian in his off-road persona. Like Crocodile Bolian came out, right? And it was muddy and nasty, and they were holding trucks at the bottom of this climb to kind of make sure that people got through it, because it was deep rut, mud, nasty, awful. We're like, here's where the Cayennes, we'll see if all this work has been right. And Ed's like, biggest grin on his face, just tearing up this mountain, mud's flying everywhere. He's like, you need to get some video. So I roll the window down, and it was like, and I mean, just covered me in the whole, the camera's covered. I'm like, oh my God, rolling the window back up, it's mud flying. And then the other truck tries to take some video, and they're covered in mud, and everybody's covered in mud. And I'm like, this is the most fun I think I've ever had in my life. We finished that climb, and it was just glorious because it was starting to get dark, and it felt just rugged and cool, and the fog and everything. And we get to the final bit, and the final bit where it plateaus out at the top of Alaska, it is this gorgeous road. Like, you're back in the United States for some reason, because the oil money up there is extreme. So they obviously spent the money on this final road, and we just hummed along. Every time we'd stop, we'd have to uncover the taillights. Like, you were just scooping stuff off of these to keep them just visible enough to any other vehicle moving along. And they look proper rugged. We got up to Dead Horse, and they have these crazy, it's not a hotel, it's like containers stacked on top of each other that they can move depending on where they need it. This crazy stacked hotel, amazing accommodations. I was like, this is really nice for being at the end of the planet. And it's usually where the workers go. We get out of the trucks, all exhausted. We finally got there. It's hard to tell. I don't remember what time it was because, again, it's light most of the time. We get out, we're walking inside, and a guy walks up to us, and he's all like, hey, and like literally, there's nobody. It's late at night. We're checking in at like 11 or 12 or 1 in the morning or whatever it was. There happens to be a guy there walking out going, you're Ed Bolian from VINwiki. I'm like, are you serious? Oh my gosh. Like, we're at the end of the planet. I go, VINwiki has arrived. Like, I'm sure we could go to the Serengeti or somewhere and somebody be like, Ed Bolian. So we go and check in. We spent the night, and we got to do this cool tour on a bus because you're not allowed to drive to the Arctic Ocean because all the land up there is owned by these oil companies. You have to have an inspection of your license, and they do a background check and the whole thing, so you're not an oil spy, I guess. And we took this bus up to the ocean and dove in. I didn't actually dive. I waded in. The other guys were much more adventurous than I am, and they all dove into the icy cold waters. I waded in, and we're like, we are in the Arctic Ocean. Like, what an experience. It's one of those things where you're like, I've done the Arctic Ocean. Now I gotta kind of go to the Antarctic. It's kind of now it's in my mind, right? And it was beautiful. It was absolutely stunning. And now it was time to return home, which I really didn't want to do. Like, once you reach the end of the earth, once you've been off the road or you're off the chain for that long, you kind of don't want to go back to real life. And I can understand kind of the people who live up there, how you would exist in that environment, because it's cold and in the wintertime, apparently deep in snow. But if you wanted to be alone, like, write your novel or something, this would be the place to do it. So we got there in 4 days. We were right on schedule. Everything worked out great. The trucks weren't fantastic. We turned around and headed home. And I'd love to say there was some kind of amazing venture on the way back, but we were driving Cayenne turbos. Like, going up was the new adventure. Turning around was, we're the old pros now. Oh, I know where we're going. I know this corner. I know what we're doing. And we started getting a little cocky and really starting to hum on the way down. Again, the truckers are the lifeline of this. And we started talking to a trucker on the CB, and they got nothing to do for hours. So they're very, very yappy. And talking like, how you doing? Oh, doing good. All right. And finally, he's all like, he pulls over, and he's like, you want to ride in the truck? And Trevin from SWAE, he worked on the railroad, and he did all kinds of stuff. He's all, heck yeah. Like, let's do this. He hops in the truck with a trucker he's never met on one of the most dangerous roads in the world. Hops in, and we're leading him out in 2 orange Cayennes with this big rig, and the big rig driver, not afraid of anything. He's up our chuff right behind us, and it was like some kind of reverse weird Smokey and the Bandit thing going on. Like, we were the bandit out front, and we were playing Eastbound and Down on the radio while the big rig's coming up behind us, lights ablazing. That was really cool. And we traveled with him for about a half hour, 45 minutes. And the guy was insanely pleasant. But we were like, I wonder if he's going to, there's a possibility he's just going to eat Trevin. Like, we don't get him back. Like, we don't know what the rules are up here. And Trevin told a story, like, when he was in the truck, that he went down to reach for the seatbelts. And the trucker had they weren't just removed from the truck. He looks over to him and he goes all like, seatbelts. He goes, we die like men. And I'm like, yeah. You know what? Everybody, take your seatbelts off. We're driving the rest of the Dalton Highway with no seatbelts, which the Porsche wouldn't allow you because it goes beep, beep, beep. So give me a Porsche. We got Trevin back alive and in one piece and all his digits. And the trucker, and I forget his name, which is the sweetest man, he came out of his truck to thank us for, kind of keeping him awake because he said he was really getting tired and that we probably helped save his life that night. And he gave us all chocolate bars. And it was like, we got a chocolate bar from a trucker. So we finish the drive, we get to our destination, we start, hopping back down, and it was really about just at that point, we had accomplished the mission to the top of enjoying the scenery, enjoying everything. And once again, just letting the scenery of Alaska, which again, I think has an anti-PR agency to make people not want to go there because every American should be up there. Let that country just wash over you. Let British Columbia just wash over you. The beauty of it, the expanse of it. It is absolutely stunning. Now, we made it back intact. Everybody's fine, a little bit tired. Back to the United States, back to Montana. And really in reflection, it was an amazing opportunity, amazing journey. I thank Ed and Sway and Trevin and everybody for having me along. But maybe it was a little too easy.
As dealership systems become more automated and more people sell their cars privately, it's harder and harder to find exactly the car that you're shopping for. But Auto Tempest is the most powerful way to shop for your next car because they compile the results from all the major listing sites into one place. Autotempest.com, all the cars, one search. They search nationally amongst all the major sites, but also allow you to search throughout the country at the same time for Facebook Marketplace results, Craigslist results, and things like that. So we love Auto Tempest because it's where I start most of my mornings, searching the deep dark corners of the internet to try to find my next bad automotive purchase. But you'll love them because it's the best way and the fastest way to find your next car. So check them out now at the link in the description below to find your next car on Auto Tempest.